The atmosphere of crystalline burned like liquid fire around Nathaniel Reed's failing ship. Warning lights flashed across his console as the sleek research vessel, once the pride of Earth's deep space program, plummeted through the alien world's upper atmosphere. The ship's hull creaked and groaned, threatening to tear apart at any moment. "Come on, hold together," Nathaniel muttered, his fingers dancing across the controls. The ship's AI had gone silent minutes ago, leaving him alone with the symphony of alarms and the growing realization that his illustrious career was about to end in a spectacular crash. 3 years ago, he'd been Earth's most promising xenophysicist, celebrated for his theories about energy-based lifeforms. Now he was a pariah, exiled to the edges of known space for daring to suggest that humans might possess latent abilities similar to those of energy-based species. The scientific community had laughed him out of academia. His final mission, a solo research expedition to the outer reaches, was meant to be his quiet retirement. Instead, he'd discovered crystalline, a planet that shouldn't exist. Its surface rippled with waves of pure energy, and its cities seemed to float on currents of light. It was everything he'd theorized about, everything he'd been mocked for believing in. And now he was going to die before he could prove everyone wrong. The ship's remaining engine gave out with a whimper. Nathaniel watched through the viewport as pieces of the hull peeled away, trailing sparks across the alien sky. The ground rushed up to meet him, a landscape of crystalline formations that pulsed with internal light. In his final moments before impact, Nathaniel saw something impossible. The ground itself seemed to reach up toward his ship, tendrils of pure energy attempting to cushion his fall. The crash was both more and less violent than he expected. The ship's nose crumpled against a crystalline formation, but instead of being crushed, Nathaniel felt himself suspended in a web of energy. It tingled against his skin, neither hot nor cold, simply present. Then everything went black. He awoke to the sound of singing crystals. At least, that's what his addled brain first interpreted it as, a high, clear tone that seemed to resonate through his bones. As his vision cleared, Nathaniel found himself lying on a bed of what appeared to be living crystal, surrounded by tall, elegant beings that seemed to be made of light-given form. At their center stood a figure that made his scientific mind short-circuit. She, and somehow he knew it was a she, towered over her companions, her form a perfect fusion of crystalline structure and flowing energy. A crown of pure light hovered above her head, and her eyes held the depth of galaxies. Queen Lamera, one of the other beings, said in surprisingly clear English, "This is unprecedented. The energy field should have consumed him during the crash. Yet he lives, and more importantly." The speaker trailed off as the Queen raised a hand that sparkled like a nebula. She approached Nathaniel, who found himself unable to move, though not from fear. The energy field around her intensified, a display of power that should have reduced him to his component atoms. Instead, he felt only a pleasant warmth, like sunlight on his skin. "Fascinating," the Queen spoke, her voice carrying harmonics that made the crystals around them hum in response. "You are not what you appear to be, human." Nathaniel managed a weak smile. "That's what I've been trying to tell my colleagues for years." He attempted to sit up, noting with interest how the energy field adjusted to support him. "I'm Dr. Nathaniel Reed, and I believe I've just proven my theory about human energy sensitivity. Though perhaps not in the way I intended." The Queen's expression shifted in a way that might have been amusement. "You've proven far more than that, Dr. Reed. You've proven that everything we thought we knew about your species might be wrong." She turned to her attendants. "Prepare the crystal spire. The human will be my guest until we understand exactly what he is." As Nathaniel was helped to his feet by beings of pure energy, he couldn't help but laugh at the irony. He'd crashed on an alien world and discovered not only proof of his theories but an entire civilization that embodied them. The scientific community back on Earth would have a collective aneurysm. But looking at Queen Lamera, seeing the calculation and curiosity in her otherworldly eyes, Nathaniel realized he might have stumbled into something far more complex than mere scientific validation. The energy patterns around her shifted in ways that spoke of power, politics, and possibilities that he couldn't begin to comprehend. "I don't suppose," he ventured, "you'd be interested in a cultural exchange? I have so many questions about your energy manipulation techniques." The Queen's response was both regal and amused. "Questions will come later, Dr. Reed. First, we must determine whether you are a miracle or a threat." As Nathaniel was led toward the towering spires of crystal and light that he assumed was the alien capital, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was about to become either the greatest breakthrough in human-alien relations, or the catalyst for something that would change both their species forever. The crystal spire lived up to its name. It twisted upward like a frozen tornado of light, its surfaces constantly shifting and refracting the alien sunlight. Nathaniel stood at a window that overlooked the capital city of Crystalline, watching as energy beings went about their daily lives on platforms of pure light. 2 weeks had passed since his crash landing, and each day brought new wonders. The crystalline civilization had mastered the art of using pure energy as their primary technology. They didn't build machines, they wove fields of force. They didn't use computers, they encoded information in crystalline matrices that processed data through light itself. "Still observing our primitives' ways, Dr. Reed?" Queen Lumra's voice carried its familiar harmonic resonance as she entered the chamber. Her energy field rippled with what Nathaniel had learned to recognize as amusement. "Primitive is hardly the word I'd use," he replied, turning to face her. "Your people have achieved what Earth's scientists considered impossible. You've transcended the barrier between matter and energy." The Queen moved to stand beside him, her presence causing the crystal beneath their feet to pulse with extroluminescence. "And yet you, a being of pure matter, resist our energy. It defies everything we thought we knew about your species." Nathaniel nodded, his mind racing with theories. "I've been thinking about that. Your energy fields, they're not just tools, are they? They're a form of communication, of connection. Very perceptive." Lumera raised her hand, creating a small display of dancing lights. "Our energy is our essence. We share thoughts, emotions, memories through these fields. All except with you." There was an undercurrent of frustration in her voice. "But not completely," Nathaniel said eagerly. "I can feel them. Not like you do, but there's something there. A warmth, a presence. It's like..." He struggled for the right words, like hearing music through a wall. "You know it's there, you can feel the rhythm, but you can't quite make out the melody." The Queen's expression shifted, her crystalline features becoming more focused. "Show me." She extended her energy field deliberately, and Nathaniel closed his eyes, concentrating on the sensation. "There," he said softly. "It's like sunlight on water. Ripples of thought and feeling." A sudden commotion outside interrupted their moment. Guards rushed into the chamber, their energy fields crackling with alarm. The lead guard spoke rapidly in their native language, causing the Queen's form to tense. "What's wrong?" Nathaniel asked. "The Void Seekers," Lumera replied, her voice hard. "A faction that believes our evolution toward pure energy should be accelerated. They've attacked one of our primary crystal matrices." Through the window, Nathaniel could see dark pulses of energy spreading through the city's network of light. Where they touched, the careful harmony of the energy fields became discordant. "Your people are connected to those matrices, aren't they?" he asked, already suspecting the answer. "If they fail, thousands will die," Lumera confirmed. "The connection that sustains us will be severed." Nathaniel watched the spreading darkness, his scientific mind racing. "Your energy fields can't touch it without being corrupted," he mused. "But I'm not connected to your network. I might be able to dash." "No," Lumera cut him off. "The void energy would still destroy you. You don't know that, Nathaniel argued. I'm already an impossibility according to your science. Let me try. The Queen studied him, her galactic eyes unreadable. Why would you risk yourself for us? Because that's what humans do, he replied simply. We reach into the unknown. Sometimes we get burned, but sometimes. He smiled, sometimes we build bridges no one thought possible. After a moment's hesitation, Lumera nodded. I will guide you. But Nathaniel. She used his first name for the first time. If you die, our hopes of understanding your unique nature die with you. Then I'd better not die, he said with more confidence than he felt. As guards escorted him toward the affected matrix, he couldn't help but wonder if his immunity to their energy fields would extend to what awaited him. The corrupted matrix was a twisted spire of crystal shot through with veins of darkness. The void energy pulsed like a malevolent heartbeat, sending waves of discord through the city's network. Crystalline citizens fled the area, their forms flickering with distress. Nathaniel approached the matrix, feeling the Queen's protective field surrounding him like a second skin. The void energy reached for him with tendrils of anti-light. He took a deep breath, extended his hand, and stepped into the unknown. The sensation was indescribable. Cold beyond cold, empty beyond empty, yet somehow alive with malevolent purpose. But where it touched him, something unexpected happened. Instead of destroying him, the void energy seemed to pass through him, as if he were a lens focusing light. Acting on instinct, Nathaniel pressed both hands against the matrix. He felt Lumera's energy field adjusting, working with him rather than trying to protect him. Together, they created something entirely new, a bridge between matter and energy, between human consciousness and crystalline technology. The void energy writhed, fought, but ultimately could not maintain its corruption in the face of their combined effort. The matrix began to clear, its natural luminescence returning. Through his connection with Lumera's field, Nathaniel felt the network stabilizing, felt thousands of lives stepping back from the brink of dissolution. When it was over, he staggered back, catching himself against a nearby crystal formation. The Queen was at his side instantly, her energy field wrapping around him protectively. How did you do that? She demanded, but her tone held wonder rather than suspicion. I didn't, Nathaniel replied, still catching his breath. We did. Your energy, my, whatever I am. We created something new. Lumera's form seemed to shimmer with intensity. Perhaps that is why you came here, Dr. Reed. Not to prove your theories, but to show us that evolution has more than one path. Looking at the restored matrix, at the city slowly returning to its normal rhythms of light and energy, Nathaniel couldn't help but agree. He'd come seeking validation of his scientific theories. Instead, he might have discovered something far more valuable, a way to bridge the gap between two fundamentally different forms of life. But as he caught the Queen's gaze, saw the calculations and possibilities racing through her otherworldly eyes, he wondered what other changes this discovery would bring. The Void Seeker's attack had proven that not everyone welcomed evolution's slow dance. And now he, a human impossibility, had demonstrated a power no one had thought possible. The game had changed, and Nathaniel had a feeling they were only beginning to understand the rules. News of the void energy incident spread through Crystalline like a shockwave. Nathaniel found himself the subject of intense scrutiny as he walked the luminescent corridors of the crystal spire. Energy beings would dim their fields as he passed, their crystalline forms shifting in what he interpreted as a mix of fear and awe. The High Council chamber hummed with tension as Nathaniel stood before the assembled leaders of crystalline society. 12 beings of pure energy, their forms more elaborate and intense than ordinary citizens, sat in a semicircle of floating crystalline platforms. Queen Lumera occupied the central position, her presence somehow both grounding and elevating the proceedings. The humans' interference in our affairs cannot be ignored, declared Councillor Varix, his form crackling with aggressive energy patterns. He has disrupted the natural order of our evolution. The natural order? Nathaniel couldn't help but interject. The Void Seekers were the ones disrupting your evolution. What we did saved lives. What you did, another counselor, Syra, spoke with a gentler resonance, was demonstrate capabilities we didn't know were possible. The question is whether those capabilities represent an opportunity, or a threat. Queen Lamera raised her hand, silencing the murmurs that had begun to ripple through the chamber. Dr. Reed's actions prevented a catastrophe. More than that, he has shown us that our understanding of both human potential and our own evolution may be incomplete. And that is precisely what concerns us, Varix countered. If humans possess this potential, what else might they be capable of? We've maintained our isolation for millennia for good reason. A new voice cut through the debate, accompanied by a surge of dark energy that made the crystals in the chamber resonate discordantly. Perhaps we should be asking why this human arrived at precisely the moment of the Void Seeker's attack. The speaker emerged from the shadows, a tall, imposing figure whose energy field rippled with shades of deep purple and black. Unlike the other council members, his form seemed to absorb light rather than emit it. Lord Thorn, Lamera acknowledged, her tone carefully neutral. You rarely grace us with your presence. These are rare times, my queen. Thorn's gaze fixed on Nathaniel. A human who can interact with our energy fields appears just as dissidents attack our most crucial systems. The timing seems convenient. Nathaniel felt the weight of accusation settling around him like a shroud. I crashed here by accident. If you check my ship's logs dash. Your damaged vessel conveniently contained exactly the right kind of data to support your story. Thorn's energy field expanded, testing Nathaniel's resistance. How fortunate. Enough. Lumera's command carried harmonic overtones that made every crystal in the chamber vibrate. Dr. Reed has earned the right to be heard. His immunity to our energy is not a weapon, it is a bridge. A bridge can be crossed from either direction, my queen. Thorn's form shifted, becoming more angular, more threatening. The Void Seekers believe our evolution has stagnated. What if they're right? What if this human's presence is a sign that we must take more, decisive action? The implications hung in the air like suspended lightning. Nathaniel looked around the chamber, seeing the council members' energy fields fluctuate with uncertainty. Even Lamera seemed troubled by the direction of the discussion. I came here seeking knowledge, Nathaniel said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. But I've found something far more important. Your civilization has mastered the fundamental forces of the universe in ways humanity can barely comprehend. We could learn from each other. Learn? Thorn's laugh was like crystal breaking. Perhaps we should learn how humans have spread across the galaxy like a virus, consuming resources, starting wars, polluting everything they touch. We've made mistakes, Nathaniel admitted. But we've also created art that can move souls, music that can heal hearts, and dreams that can reach across the stars. We're not perfect, but we're always striving to be better. He turned to face Lamera directly. When we worked together to cleanse the Matrix, we created something entirely new. Not human, not crystalline, but a harmony of both. Isn't that worth exploring? The Queen's form seemed to brighten slightly, but before she could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the spire. Emergency signals pulsed through the crystal networks, carrying messages that made the council members' energy fields flare with alarm. Multiple attacks, Syra reported, her form connecting directly with the information stream. The Void Seekers have struck again, but this time. She paused, her energy pattern showing clear distress. This time they're targeting the sacred nexus. The reaction was immediate and dramatic. Council members rose in panic, their energy fields creating a cascade of conflicting patterns. Only Lamera, Thorn, and Nathaniel remained calm in the chaos. The sacred nexus maintains the barrier between normal space and the void, Lamera explained to Nathaniel, her voice tight with concern. If it falls, All of crystalline will be exposed to void energy, Thorn finished. Our entire civilization will either evolve, or die trying. His form shifted again, and Nathaniel caught something in his energy pattern, not fear, but anticipation. Understanding dawned. You're working with them, Nathaniel accused. The Void Seekers aren't revolutionaries, they're your pawns. Thorn's energy field expanded explosively, dark tendrils reaching for Nathaniel's throat. But once again, the void energy seemed to pass through him, leaving him unharmed. The council chamber erupted into chaos as guards rushed in, their energy fields at battle readiness. The time for half measures is over, Thorn declared, his form now fully embracing the void energy. Evolution cannot be stopped. The only question is whether you will embrace it, or be consumed by it. As battle lines were drawn in the council chamber, Nathaniel looked to Lamera. In her eyes, he saw the same realization he had reached: this wasn't just about evolution anymore. It was about the very nature of change, and whether it would come through harmony or destruction. The game had indeed changed, and now they all would have to choose their sides. The evacuation of the Crystal Spire happened in waves of light and energy. Citizens streamed through emergency portals as void energy crept through the city's network like poison in veins. In the midst of the chaos, Nathaniel and Queen Lamera raced through twisting corridors toward the heart of their civilization, the sacred nexus. "There's something you need to know," Lamera said as they ran, her energy field pulsing with urgency. "About why you're really immune to our power." Nathaniel vaulted over a fallen crystal column. Now might not be the best time for revelations. On the contrary. The Queen's form shifted, becoming more concentrated, more focused. The sacred nexus isn't just a barrier between normal space and the void. It's a record of our entire history, including our first contact with humanity. That made Nathaniel stumble. First contact? But Earth has never dash. Not with your current civilization. They reached a massive door made of pure crystalline energy. 50,000 years ago, another human society reached our level of advancement. They too discovered the bridge between matter and energy. The door parted at Lumra's touch, revealing a vast chamber that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. At its center floated a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with every color imaginable, and some that shouldn't have been. What happened to them? Nathaniel asked, though part of him already knew the answer. They tried to force their evolution, just as Thorn and the Void Seekers are attempting now. The results were catastrophic. Lumara's form dimmed slightly with the weight of memory. But before their civilization fell, a few of them worked with us to encode their genetic potential into human DNA. A failsafe, waiting for the right moment to reawaken. Nathaniel's mind raced. "You're saying I'm Dash? A descendant of those who chose harmony over forced evolution. Your immunity isn't random, Nathaniel. It's your inheritance." Their conversation was interrupted by a surge of void energy that made the chamber's crystals shriek in protest. Lord Thorn appeared, his form now a terrifying fusion of crystalline structure and void energy. "How touching," he sneered. "Sharing ancient history while our future hangs in the balance." Behind him, dozens of Void Seekers emerged from shadows that shouldn't have existed. "But you've left out the most important part, my queen." Lumara's energy field crackled with defensive power. "Don't." "The humans didn't just encode their potential," Thorn continued, his voice resonating with dark triumph. "They proved that rapid evolution was possible. Their failure wasn't in the attempt, it was in their unwillingness to embrace the void completely." "They were right to fear it," Lamera shot back. "The void doesn't evolve, it consumes. Changes. Corrupts. Evolution is corruption." Thorn's form expanded, filling the chamber with shadows. Every major leap forward in any species' history came from corruption of what came before. Perfection through destruction. Nathaniel stepped forward, placing himself between Lumera and Thorn. "You're wrong. Evolution isn't about destruction, it's about adaptation. Growth. Finding new ways to survive and thrive." Bold words from a living fossil, Thorn laughed. "Your ancestors had power like ours, and they threw it away out of fear. We won't make the same mistake." The Void Seekers began their attack on the Nexus, their corrupted energy eating away at its pristine structure. Nathaniel could feel the barrier between dimensions starting to weaken. "If the barrier falls, the void will flood this entire sector of space," Lumera warned. "Billions will die, not just our people, but every species in range." Nathaniel watched the corruption spreading and had a terrible realization. That's what happened before, isn't it? The ancient humans didn't just fail in their evolution, they triggered a void cascade that wiped them out. "Yes," Lumera confirmed. "Only a handful of survivors made it to Earth, carrying the encoded potential in their genes. We've spent 50,000 years watching, waiting for that potential to resurface naturally. And now it has." Nathaniel felt something stirring inside him, a power that had always been there but never fully awakened. The energy fields, the void immunity, it's not just about resistance. It's about balance. He closed his eyes, concentrating on that feeling. When he opened them again, his body had begun to emit its own kind of energy, not the pure light of the crystalline beings, nor the consuming darkness of the void, but something in between. "Impossible," Thorn breathed, his attack faltering. "No," Nathaniel said, his voice carrying new harmonics. "Evolution." He reached out with his hybrid energy, connecting with the Nexus. Through it, he could feel the entire network of crystalline civilization, and the corruption trying to consume it. But where his energy touched the void, something unexpected happened. Instead of being consumed or corrupted, the two forces began to interact in a new way. Light and shadow, matter and energy, finding balance rather than destruction. "What are you doing?" Thorn demanded, his form fluctuating with uncertainty. "Proving a point." Nathaniel looked to Lumera, saw understanding dawn in her galactic eyes. Evolution isn't about choosing between extremes. It's about finding new paths forward. The Queen stepped forward, her energy field merging with Nathaniel's hybrid power. Together, they began to push back against the void corruption, not by destroying it, but by transforming it. "The ancient humans were right about one thing," Nathaniel said as their combined power spread through the network. "The next step in evolution isn't about becoming pure energy or embracing the void. It's about learning to exist in harmony with both." Thorn screamed in rage, launching himself at them in a final, desperate attack. But as he struck their merged energy field, something remarkable happened. Instead of being destroyed, his void energy began to transform, finding a new equilibrium between light and shadow. The battle for Crystalline's future had reached its turning point, but Nathaniel knew the real challenge was just beginning. Evolution was coming, ready or not. The only question was whether they could guide it toward harmony instead of destruction. As the void energy continued to shift and change around them, Nathaniel caught Lumera's gaze. In her eyes, he saw not just the weight of history, but the possibility of a future neither of them had imagined possible. The sacred nexus pulsed with newfound power as reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Nathaniel and Queen Lumera's merged energy field had spread throughout the crystalline network, creating pathways of balance between light and void. Lord Thorn and his void seekers found themselves caught in this transformation, their corrupted energy neither destroyed nor triumphant, but changing into something entirely new. "This isn't possible," Thorn gasped, watching as his void energy began to harmonize with the light. "The void cannot be tamed." "Not tamed," Nathaniel corrected, maintaining his connection with both the Nexus and Lumera. "Understood. Balanced. Everything in the universe exists in cycles, light and dark, creation and destruction. Fighting that natural balance was your mistake." Through their connected energy fields, Nathaniel felt Lumira's pride and agreement ripple through him. But he also felt her concern. The transformation was spreading faster than expected, affecting not just the Void Seekers, but all of crystalline society. "The changes," she said, her voice carrying harmonics of wonder and worry. "They're cascading through the entire network. Every citizen of crystalline is being affected." Nathaniel nodded, watching as the crystal structures around them began to pulse with new patterns of light and shadow. "Just like your ancestors helped encode humanity's potential, we're encoding a new possibility for your people. The question is, are they ready for it?" The answer came not from Lumira or Thorn, but from the citizens themselves. As the hybrid energy reached them, they began to change. Their pure light forms gained depth and texture, incorporating shadows that made their radiance even more beautiful. It wasn't corruption, it was complexity. "I understand now," Thorn whispered, his own form shifting as the transformation took hold. "We sought to force evolution because we feared stagnation. But true evolution comes from embracing complexity, not running from it." "The ancient humans learned this too late," Lumira added, her galactic eyes fixed on Nathaniel. "But you've shown us a different path. A way to grow without losing ourselves." The transformation continued to spread, but it wasn't just affecting the crystalline beings. Nathaniel felt changes within himself as well. His human form remained, but now it shimmered with subtle energies that bridged the gap between matter and light. "I can feel everything," he breathed, overwhelmed by the sensations flowing through the network. "Every citizen, every crystal, every pulse of energy. We're all connected." "As it should be," Lumira said, her form moving closer to his. "Our isolation was born of fear, fear of change, fear of loss. But you've shown us that the greatest evolution comes from connection, not separation." The sacred nexus flared with sudden intensity, and in its light, Nathaniel saw visions of possibility. Future generations of humans and crystalline beings working together, learning from each other, growing in ways neither species could achieve alone. It wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about thriving. "The barrier between dimensions," Thorn observed, his voice now free of its former malice. "It's changing too." Indeed, the void was no longer a threat to be contained. The hybrid energy had transformed it into a source of potential, a realm of possibility that could be accessed safely when in balance with normal space. "Your ancestors would be proud," Lumira told Nathaniel, her energy field embracing his. "You've completed what they started. Not by forcing evolution, but by showing us how to evolve naturally." Nathaniel smiled, feeling the truth of her words in every cell of his transformed being. "We all did this together. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our potential for power, it's our ability to adapt, to find new ways forward, to build bridges between different ways of being." As the transformation stabilized throughout crystalline, citizens began returning to the city. But it wasn't the same city they had left. The crystal spires now sang with harmonies of light and shadow, energy patterns danced with new complexity, and the barrier between matter and energy had become less rigid, more permeable. "What happens now?" Thorn asked, his form settling into a new equilibrium that balanced void and light. "Now," Lumira declared, "we truly begin to evolve. Not through force or fear, but through understanding and cooperation." She turned to Nathaniel, her form resonating with emotions that transcended ordinary expression. "Will you stay? Help us navigate this new path?" Nathaniel looked out over the transformed city, then back at the Queen who had become so much more than just an ally. In her eyes, he saw not only the future of their species but the possibility of something deeper, more personal. "My ship crashed here for a reason," he said, his hybrid energy harmonizing with hers. "I came looking for proof of my theories, but I found something far more valuable, a way to bridge worlds, to prove that different forms of life can not only coexist but help each other grow." The sacred nexus hummed with approval as their energy fields merged once again, this time not in desperate defense but in joyful acceptance of what they had become. Around them, the city of crystalline pulsed with new life, a testament to what was possible when fear gave way to understanding, when evolution was guided by wisdom rather than force. And in that moment, as light and shadow danced in perfect harmony, Nathaniel realized that his crash landing hadn't been an end at all, it had been a beginning. The start of a new chapter, not just for him, not just for crystalline, but for both their species and perhaps the galaxy itself. Above them, the alien sky shimmered with possibilities, and for the first time in 50,000 years, the stars looked down on a world where matter and energy, light and void, human and crystalline had found their perfect balance.